Hello and welcome to chapters 26 and 27 of The Siege. So, I just want to recap what happened in chapter 25. And Anna had some firewood, and unfortunately, she was robbed. So she returns home, but on the way she meets Evgenia in chapter 26. Now you might remember that she first met Evgenia in chapter 7, so quite a long time ago. And Anna had wanted to stay in touch with this lady, and she had asked for her address, and Evgenia had said, no, sorry, I don't want to give you my address. So here we are, many chapters later, and Anna has run into this lady again. And Evgenia is angry about the recent theft, and she says, we may have eaten all the real rats, but we've still got the human ones around. So this is a metaphor comparing the people who take resources from Anna as rats. There's also some humor in this metaphor as well, because obviously it's quite funny, I suppose, to think of the fact that rats are being eaten and in some sort of weird way. I mean, I don't know, would you like to eat a rat in order to survive? And this idea as well that Evgenia is working as a prostitute. Unfortunately, her child has passed away. Some men have given her a bottle of vodka, and she gives this bottle of vodka to another group of men so that they will bury her child. So I've included a picture of the vodka in the top of this video. And Evgenia compares the conflict to a game of hide and seek. She imagines that when the game is over, her child will emerge from his hiding place, which is a metaphor. And of course we know that her child won't come back to life, but the point here is that we should have empathy for Evgenia. It's obviously very traumatic to lose a child. And another example of people who have lost their child in this novel, if we think back to Fedia and Zena, who are Anna's neighbors, have lost their baby. And it was a very disturbing scene where Anna had to draw a portrait of the dead baby. Evgenia has stolen some sugar from one of her drunk clients, and she gives it to Anna. So this is a nice gift that Anna is obviously very pleased to receive. And Evgenia mentions Katya. So she was the young woman who was killed on the Luga line. And Evgenia claims that some people don't have it in them. So I put in brackets there that some people do not have enough willpower to survive, according to Evgenia. However, Evgenia believes that Anna is a strong character. So we're getting very close to the end of the book. We have only 3 chapters left after this, really, or 3 or 4 chapters after chapter 26. So Anna seems quite likely to survive at this point. In chapter 27, what's happening? It's December 1941. Now, this is very interesting. If you know much about history, you'll understand that this is a key month in World War II. So this is the month in which the Japanese attacked the United States and the United Kingdom. So the United Kingdom, I mean that the United Kingdom had military forces in Singapore and in Malaysia that were attacked by the Japanese. So this was a huge mistake for the Japanese. And why is this such a key turning point in the war? Because if you think back to September 1939, that's when the British and the French declare war on Nazi Germany. Now we all know that the French get knocked out of the war very quickly, and that the British are really struggling. For a long time they're isolated. They're begging the Americans for help. The Americans send some food and some weapons, but they don't send any soldiers, really. Then suddenly Hitler attacks Russia in June 1941. So things are going very well for Hitler at this stage. However, once the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, the Nazis declare war on the United States too. Now, the United States is an extremely rich and powerful nation, and because it is protected by the Pacific Ocean and by the Atlantic Ocean, it is almost impossible to attack the United States. Very, very difficult thing to do. So, a key turning point in the war, because soon the United States will be delivering resources to the Russians to help them survive. And in chapter 27 we have more from Pavlov. So Pavlov's job is to inch Leningrad towards life, which is a metaphor. Perhaps it's also personification. And everyone has to reappear in person to re-register their ration cards each month. Unfortunately, we have fraud, the black market, and theft, which are distorting his statistics. So if you think that Pavlov is sort of a logical bureaucrat, he needs to have accurate information in order to do the best to distribute the food. And so he has to try and stop the waste and the corruption, which is very, very difficult. Because if you think about it, if you're the average Russian citizen living in Leningrad, and you're very hungry and you're very cold, you're going to do what it takes to survive. And you would commit fraud. You would steal. And Pavlov has noticed that the death penalty has lost its edge. By this, he means that people are no longer scared of dying anymore, so they're not going to follow the rules. This chapter as well, it includes a sample from a real diary from an 11-year-old child. So that's right at the end of chapter 27. So if you think about a young girl who was in Holland at the time, her name was Anne Frank. So Anne Frank has become very famous for symbolizing how brutal and horrible World War II was, because obviously it's terrible that a 13-year-old girl such as Anne Frank should be killed. Now, in Russia, there's also this tradition of looking back to a young girl who was killed. So this girl is 11 years old. She's not 13, but it's the same idea. Okay, so she is watching all of her family members die. It's very horrible. The point the author is making here is that the author is including real historical evidence in her novel. This novel is historical fiction, so it's a combination of historical events that actually literally happened and fictional events which obviously did not happen. So Anna and Mikhail and Kolya and Marina and Andrei are fictional characters. They did not really exist. However, this 11-year-old girl actually did, and people such as Stalin and Hitler existed too. Alright, so we're very close to the end of the novel now. Tomorrow we're going to look at chapters 28 and 29, and then on Friday we'll look at the final chapter, chapter 30. And I hope that you're all doing really well with your homework questions. Thank you very much.